Okay, so set up your XY line. The horizontal and vertical traces. Okay, so once that's done, use the information in the question just to set up the plan elevation, construction of the plan elevation, because then we're going to cut the solid object. Okay, so straight from there, measure over 60, and from 60 then 44. Okay, them two lines can come down. Use make sure it's construction lines. Okay, then we're going to measure down 50. Okay, and we know each side then is 44, so we can add that in 44. Okay, so you can use the Z-squares, or you can measure 44 on a compass and move it around, whatever you want to do, I don't mind. Okay, and then join our corners to find the center point for the apex. Okay, so we have that done. We can bring it up. We know that then we're better off labeling all the points if possible. So you can see in the next part of the question in the book that all the points are actually labelled. So label them the same just to help yourself. Okay, so we always label the apex 0. Point here is then as 1, 2, 3 and 4. So start labelling. If you're not labelling, okay, start labelling. 2, 3. So if you're looking here, you see 2 first. So it's 2, 3. Looking here, you see 1 first. So it's 1, 4. We know that the apex is along that line somewhere, and it is, I think, 80. Yeah, it's 80 off the ground. So we'll mark that. There's your apex. And join it to there. And join it back to there. That's all. Okay, so the question is set up now. So all we need to do now is we need to move along here, and we need to look in along the horizontal trace. Okay, we have to look along the horizontal trace. We're taking the auxiliary along there, so everything then is going to be projected out onto the new x1, y1 line from that point. Okay, so it's 45 degrees, so you can use your 45 degree set square to make sure that you have it perpendicular. Okay, so x1, y1. Okay, so we've looked along HT. Okay, so HT is going to appear here as a point view, the horizontal trace. So we need to find the vertical trace, okay, the true inclination of the vertical trace. So we've walked along here and we're looking in. We want to make sure that we can see the true inclination. Okay, so you can take a height anywhere along in elevation, it doesn't matter. A lot of people weren't sure about this. Okay, you can take it anywhere you want. Okay, so I'm just going to randomly draw a line. Okay, I'll use the orange so we can see it. So that distance there now, from here to here, we're going to call H. Okay, so if we look along the auxiliary, so make sure that it's parallel, okay, along the HT. Okay, so that point touches the XY line. We look along that here. Okay, and we take that distance, using our compass, take that distance. So we call distance H, or the height H. And we step it off here. Okay, because that point on the vertical trace, no matter where you're standing, that point, that height has to be the same all the way along.
So did I leave my
Do you have a look? I don't think so.
I don't know, I'm after losing it. I don't know what it is.
It's not there?
Yeah. Oh, here's my drink. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. No,
Nah.
I didn't see it anyway.
I think I left it in my locker, I don't know. I'm after losing it.
Oh, we'll check your locker, I'd say.
Yeah.
Just in case, no problem.
Wait, see you at the parent teacher meetings.
See you later.
Wait, see you.
No problem, see it. Okay, so from here then, from HT through that point, it's going to give you your vertical trace. So we call it V1. Okay, so that's it now. We were after getting, if we walked around here and looked looked underneath the horizontal, or sorry, the horizontal trace, and we're looking under an edge view of the plane. So this is an edge view now of the oblique plane. So start labeling things, anyone that's not labeling anymore. So it's an edge view of oblique plane, oblique cutting plane in this case, because it's cutting our object. Okay, so all we need to do now is actually see what our object would be like now once it's cut. So we'll see all our cut of the solid on the edge view here. Okay, so we need to just project all these points up here. There's point 1. Okay, so it's on the ground. You can see there, it's on the XY line there, so there's 1 there. 2 then we can bring up here. 2 is from there to there. So 2 is on the ground line as well. And then 3 is on the ground line. Okay, and 4 is on the ground line. You don't need to start dragging up all your points, so 2 and 4 are in line with each other. You don't have to use all the line. If you have it in line there, you just have to put it where it's going. Okay, your drawings should start getting neater by now. Okay, so we know 2, 4 and the apex O are in line with each other, so continue that up there. And what we can do now is, we know the height here of O is the exact same in all views. So we can take that height and we can step it off here. And that's O there. Okay. So using construction lines, lightly drawing the elevation now, or the auxiliary elevation. Okay, so join all points back. You can see all points here go 1 goes to the apex, 2 and 3 and 4 go to the apex. So do the same thing here and join them all back together. Okay, that's why it's important to label now, so you can find everything. Okay, so we need to then see if I heavy in, I'll use a different colour here. I heavy in everything that's going to be kept on the solid once it's been cut. Okay, so that edge is there. That's also going to be kept. And this is going to be kept. Okay, so there's the edge view of the cut surface there now. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we can label them points here using, so we'll use A, B, C, D. Okay, so from 1 up to the apex, where it's cut by the oblique plane, it gives us point A. From 2 gives us B, and from 4 will give us C, and from 3 will give us D. Okay, so we have our points labelled. We're going to use them now in our views. So all we need to do now is we're going to take A and we'll bring it back down. Okay, anyone that's not following, this is a very important point here now. Okay, so A, so from point 1 to the apex is cut here with the oblique cone at A. So from 1, if it happens in this view, from 1 to the apex, it happens in every view. So from 1 to the apex here, that's going to be point A as well. So make sure we label that point A. Okay, point B then, and C, okay, are the same height off the ground, so we go straight over to D. So from 3 to the apex is cut at D, so we're going to bring it down here. So from 3 to the apex is cut at D, so there's D there now. Okay, so we know then B and C are cut along there, but we can't find the point because it's in line with it. But we do know that B and C are the same distance off the ground here they're the same distance off the ground here. Okay, so if they're that height off the ground in an auxiliary elevation, they have to be the exact same height off the ground here in our elevation. Okay, so it's that same height. So we know that B and C are this height off the ground. Okay, so we call that H1. Are that height off the ground. So we know A and D are found. We need to find B and C. So from 2 to the apex, that's going to locate point B. Okay, and from 4 to the apex, that height off the ground is going to locate D. Okay, so if anyone that's struggling, that's how we find them points. So we have D and B here. So it's from 4 to the apex, so we can bring it straight down, and there's going to be D in plan, and we can bring that straight down, and that's going to be B in plan, just for anyone that's struggling. Okay, so we have found them here. We have A, B, so we can heavy it in. A, B, C, and D. So I put D there instead of B. So we can just join them back together. So A goes to B. B goes to A. D, A, sorry, that's D. And that's C. Sorry, I'm after mixing them up there now. B and C. But they're mislabeling my own points there now. So that's A and that's D. Yeah, so that's C and that's B. Okay, yeah, that's right there now. Apologies. Let's just heavy in then. Okay, the cut surface, and then we can heavy in everything then afterwards that's going to be seen. So that's the plan almost done. Okay, so you always heavy in the edges that are going to be kept at the end. The edges you see. So keep it nice and light with construction lines for as long as possible. Don't heavy anything until the very end. Okay, so there's the cut surface there now. I'm just going to hatch it in just to show you that it's cut. Okay, so now we have it in plan, we need to find it in elevation. Okay, so we have 2 points in elevation, we have C and we have B. Now we need to find D and we need to find A. Okay, so A then we need to start again going back from A. It's going to be parallel. Where it hits the X1, Y1, we can bring it straight up till it hits our vertical trace. Okay, same thing we did in the first question, just finding 1 point. And then we're going to bring it straight across. There's A, up, and across. Okay. So we know that A then has to be in line with A in elevation, yeah, so that'll be A there. Perfect. Okay, so now we need to find B, so D, we have the same thing there, up, where it hits the X1 or the XY line, we bring it up and bring it across. Okay, that should be exactly there, above it there now. Yeah, so there's D there. Okay. So we can have it in there now, that D to C, C to A to B, And then we're going to have a solid base that touches the ground. We're going to have a solid edge over here. And we're going to have a solid edge over here. Okay, so for anyone that's not sure, make sure that you highlight it to make it stand out for yourself. Okay, so that surface there, we're going to use that as an orange surface. That's an orange surface there. So the cut surface is orange. And that's the question answered. Okay, don't worry about the labelling. I made a mistake in the labelling, but if you label it correctly, it's easier to follow. Okay, so label whatever you want, A, B's and C's, or 1, 2s and 3s.